I don't know.
Alright, well, welcome to TMR News. This will be the best place on the web that you can get your bi-monthly news. We pick through the best stories that there are to speak about on a global basis. Every couple of weeks or every month throughout the internet and throughout multiple different news sources, so that you can experience the best and cut through all the propaganda and crap that you'll see. Chris, what aren't we talking about? I'm Sean Baker, by the way.
Sonny, Chris,
and we've got some stipulations of what we do and don't talk about. We talk about what is current and relevant news to the furthering and the bettering of humanity.
I think technology news about
Definitely.
off-the-shelf technology and up-and-coming technology.
if it has, like, if you can rationalize it having an impact on your life, if you're going to wake up tomorrow and have a different world, like, we'll be talking about it.
Half the stuff we'll be talking about you won't see on your local news or on your national news provider. We'll be talking about behind what's happening behind the scenes on a few topics. What we believe, if you join the dots together, obviously the more information you got, the more dots you can put together, the more you can come up with a very very well put together opinion.
And why are we doing this? I suppose.
It's hard to cut through the crap.
Yeah.
It's hard to cut through the crap.
But we do this anyway. All of us read and watch a ton of news.
That's right.
And we like hanging out, and we might as well record that discussion. And I think some people will probably find it useful.
Definitely.
So wait a minute, before we get on, there'll be no sport or weather on this channel.
No sport.
Yeah, or whatever Justin Bieber did this
celebrity
week,
crap.
we probably don't even know. Fortunately for us, I would say. Okay, now another stipulation. Our channel, TMR Podcast, has violated copyright laws by posting a movie from, I think, 1963, like a clip from a movie.
Stay true.
Stay true.
Fight for your rights.
So we got 15 minutes limit. So this show is going to go on for an hour to an hour 20, and we're going to end this segment with a link to the rest of the show, and this will be posted on our regular channel where we have some 500 plus subscribers. Now the topics for today, we're going to talk about, I've got 7 main stories. And first, we're going to dig into a little bit about the Malaysia 370 flight and its mysterious disappearance. There are... Even mainstream media is going into hyperbolic conspiracy theories in that.
I mean, I know a couple of people who work for Qantas, and they're good friends, and they're a bit freaked out by the situation, because if you know anything about a plane, you might not realise, but once it actually drops a certain level, it goes below radar, and you can't tell. So even with how sophisticated technology is today, if the plane drops below a certain level, you can't even tell where it is. So, look, there's a number of theories. I think they're pretty sure it's terrorism at the moment. They're pretty sure someone has taken the plane because they can't find the wreckage. So,
the main thing, the most mysterious thing, and I'll end the story on this. We'll talk about it in much greater detail after the segment one, is black boxes. Every plane has nuclear bomb-proof boxes, 2 of them, that are there in cases of crashes.
And I think only one has failed.
The only time they've ever lost both black boxes on a plane was on 9/11. So this is the second time. It's a very something's happened where somebody, who has access to the black boxes and the GPS information on that, the airline. So someone in the airline is really not letting information out.
That's right.
Next story, Crimea, Ukraine. I mean, this has been in the news. We've been told, the Ukrainian people want their freedom and they want to join the EU, and they are being stamped down by the oppressive Russian supporting Ukrainian government.
Standing in the way of democracy. American democracy.
American democracy. But funnily enough, it's actually not standing in the way of democracy. What's standing in the way of democracy is if they don't let Crimea
secede.
Become a sovereign state become part of Russia, because the referendum was 96% of Crimeans wanted to become part of Russia.
I understand that, but I think you've got democracy and hypocrisy mixed up.
Yeah.
That's what I see. I see American hypocrisy here all the way. We'll talk about that more in the up and coming.
Absolutely.
The way US brings democracy is when you have a democratically elected government.
Yeah.
Well, that's the idea.
Democracy is the removal of a
democracy.
Yeah.
That's right.
Democracy is all about removing democratically elected governments.
Yeah, that's true.
To bring whatever we like.
But we'll get into talking a lot about the power military structures that are in play through Crimea and Ukraine.
March in March. Okay, this is a local story to us here in Melbourne. I haven't been there, but I think half the people I know have. There was recent protests. Just generally, we are discontented and unhappy with the general situation of generally things in general. And
a bit of a vote of no confidence from the what some people may consider an ultra conservative Australian government, and some people thinking that some of the policies and procedures they're putting in place are not that.
They're not here
They're not here for the people.
They're not here for corporate. They're corporate governments.
And
they're dickheads.
And they're unlike a country like the US, where they have a corporate puppet and they put him on stage, and it looks kind of like, oh, this guy's for real. He's black and he speaks with a ghetto accent, and you know, like he likes Jay-Z. Like our corporate puppet here, Tony Abbott.
Yeah.
His favourite line is, "We're open for business. We're open for business. We're open."
We're open for business, Australia. That's great.
The guy looks like you found him on a second-hand car sales lot, pushing.
It looks,
dodgy.
It looks like he's from fucking Lord of the Rings. He does.
I think you got it wrong. I think Tony Abbott, and I know a lot of people out there have watched this 60s icon show called Get Smart. And if you remember the robot on Get Smart, Jaime, that reminds me of Tony Abbott. Yeah. He's programmable.
Oh, isn't he? Yeah.
He does what he's told.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Okay, wrapping it up. Next story is going to be on Snowden made a TED talk on a robot, and it was pretty cool. He said some good things. NSA responded, and there's a very, I would say, disturbing cross-section of what Snowden himself and NSA agrees with. I personally am a huge supporter of Snowden and what he did, but I think that a lot of people in the activist community have this notion that, this guy is for open source, freedom of information, that the public should really know everything, and the reality is, and we'll get into that, the reality is that 95% of the documents that Snowden took from the NSA are still hidden from the public. They're under the ownership of a guy that also owns eBay, Pierre Midyar.
Really?
Yep, who's gone into partnership with Glenn Greenwald in a company. So there are gray areas and shady things about Snowden, but there's no gray areas when it comes to the NSA response, where the guy was trying to invoke love of America and patriotism.
Oh, I love that. That gets me every time. Brings a tear to my eye. Brings a tear to my eye. Oh my God. Sometimes
I love patriotism.
Oh, I love it.
I pay it every year. It's called tax.
That's right. Take fucking 30% of my working wage.
My patriotism.
Yeah. There you go. Do what you want with it.
Always makes me cry.
I won't complain. Oh, no. Yeah.
Sean, like the next one you brought. I mean, by the way, most of the news here are brought to you by the big man in the middle.
They did a bit of research.
They did a lot of research this week. Next week, I intend to try to do some of the heavy lifting, and Chris is committed.
I'm just here for comedy relief.
Well,
Chris here for the looks. They're just here for him.
Yeah.
I love that.
He's the resident Bill Hicks. He's more of a hick than Bill, but nonetheless.
Yeah.
Israeli embassy strike. What's going on?
Look, to be honest, I only found it today. It only came out today, but from what I've been told look, it's Russia Today, so as much as you want to read into that, but apparently throughout their consulate staff have been in a pay dispute for quite some time, and they have not been paid what they wanted to do. So nearly 90% of Israeli embassies throughout the world have been shut down. Now, the conspiracy flags are waving high, saying that they think that Israel's about to make a strike on Syria, and they're just shutting down all their embassies so that they can. But that's with my limited information.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got the link there, so we'll be talking a lot more about that. It's actually quite interesting.
I think we should occupy these embassies.
Yeah,
Since they're not using it, occupy movement, move in.
Yeah,
set up homeless shelters in the embassy.
For Palestinians!
that would be...
That's excellent. That's gold. How about that?
No, I imagine
Palestinians only.
Let's lobby the government. Let's
take their property and move in.
I think we should move in. I reckon, if you went to the Israeli embassy, the thing is probably, in a Faraday cage, tap-proof, nuclear bomb-proof, Arab-proof, it's... I reckon
Arab proof. How do you get something Arab proof?
You can't play on a magic carpet.
Put the Star of David and 2 blue lines. It's already Arab proof. No. That won't go near.
Well, if I go in, I'm going to go straight to the basement because I've always wanted an Uzi.
I know.
Last story. Talking of Arabs.
Talking of the most extreme Arabs. The U.S. supported Muslim Brotherhood that was meant to a large extent to take over in Egypt are now being persecuted by what I understand to be the army in charge, because I don't... Well, no, yeah, it is. It's an army-ruled government. That's for sure. Yeah,
effectively, Muslim Brotherhood were meant with the Egyptian revolution to ascend and share power with this guy called El Baradei, who was a U.S. puppet. However, what happened was that army, more or less the same guys that controlled Mubarak, remained in control, and
that's right,
Muslim Brotherhood is challenging them for power, and now they're sentencing 528 of them to death.
I think that they actually did obviously I don't know what they all did, but there was a few of them, a fair few that have been charged with murder and that sort of thing. So I don't know. Obviously, not all of them would have been charged with murder, but there was a portion of them that
army, one in, all in.
Yeah, one in, all in. A bit. I think. Yeah.
All I know is that in the West, for better or worse, when somebody kills somebody, they spend a few years in court. Yep. And then they have another 5-6 years of appeals.
Yeah.
But
that doesn't happen. There's an army in control of your government. And you pretty much got a couple of months.
So there's no green mile.
No. 528 at a time. That must be they're going for the record.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
Trying to beat Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. So that is okay. I think we've at this stage,
we will be talking about a few more. It's not all doom and gloom. We do get into some, fun and interesting topics at the end of it.
Everything we talk about will have links linked in the description. Description will be below there. We are going to try our best to distinguish between what we have evidence for and what we're speculating about. I believe that speculation is both fun, useful, and conducive to figuring out what's going on, but you've got to be explicit when you say, okay, you're speculating.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Hey?
No.
I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. Come on.
And since we're hitting our 15-minute censorship mark, the link will be, bam, right here. The screen's going to come on, and continue watching us and hearing about all these stories in detail. And we are talking, what's our first story? The
MH370.
Yep.
Alright, we gotta...
Oh, before we start on this, I just wanted to mention, there was a great doco here the other...
Do you want to close the door, man?
There was a great documentary here the other week about flight 800 out of JFK, and how it was shot down by a 5 engineers have come out and said a missile is blew up on the outside of the plane.
Was that in New York?
Yeah, JFK out of Long Island, which is New York.
Yeah, that was just after the 9/11 attacks. Yeah, no, wasn't it? When was it?
I can't remember the date. I got a strange feeling I was in the US and it was just after I'd left.
So when was this?
Look, I'm going to have to.
the
look
90s.
it up.
Oh no,
Yeah, I'm going to have to look it up. But what it was is
There was a TWA flight.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And the 5 engineers have now come out of the woodwork and said we pretty much got sacked because we caught the FBI in there altering evidence, shifting it around, trying to make it look like it was a fuel tank explosion going out,
man.
and we knew it was a explosion from the outside coming in.
Where did it blow up?
Right over
We're doing
just off the
podcast.
coast of Long Island.
Yeah. Yep. No, I actually remember when I was in New York, I was actually speaking to someone about that, and are you?
But the
No. We are going to be back. We're going to do the official "We Are Back" thing in
Oh, jeez, I thought we
3,
were
2, 1.
Are we taking calls during this?
Yeah, no. Okay, 18. No, we finished at 14. Now it's 18 minutes. So we're going to talk about the MH370 plane.
We are.
I want to
Alright,
bring up
we
the 800.
Okay.
I'm just going to.
Yeah. Go on.
Is there anything you want to look up? Whether this American plane?
I can't remember the date. That's all I don't have.
Because I'm happy, to.
I just wanted to mention that this is a huge cover-up with the FBI and the American government about this plane that was shot down by 16 people were interviewed by the FBI, and they're all told you didn't see nothing, shut up, you didn't see nothing, and if you say anything you'll be in jail.
I have a couple of sort of cousin-in-laws that live in New York, and
Sorry, just type in TWA 800.
And they were saying to me about that. I thought it was around 9/11 time or something, and they were saying, no, there was a flight that got shot down. They fully believe that. They were like, no, they shot it down. And the government shot it down for sure.
Well, a lot of people saw this rocket come out of the water because remember it's on the horizon.
Yeah.
Come up, followed the plane, and then blew up beside the plane. And the plane fell to bits and fell to the ground.
Yeah.
Right, and then I think 2 witnesses said. They got out their binoculars because they live on Long Island, right?
Yeah.
And they looked out onto the water, and what they saw was a naval ship.
Oh shit! Really? Yeah, right.
Okay, so the timeline. Oh, this is good, man. We could this is.
Did you type in
March, Sunday.
Is this?
This is 370.
Yeah, this is the 370. New Indian Ocean search possible.
This is all a lot of this is just
Saturday, 8th of March. So this is when it happens. Flight takes off at 12:41 a.m. local time. 227 passengers, 12 crew members. And it loses contact. And there's
and they physically turned. So it's the last thing they heard was "good night" or something by the co-pilot, and then they turned it, and then they physically actually turned off the transponder or something like that. So that's what they're saying. They think it's.
Are we recording this? What's going on?
Okay, we are going to start right now.
Yeah. Okay, we can start right now.
Okay.
Can you just, before we start, can you find out the date of that 800?
Yeah, I've got TWA 800.
What was the date?
Series.
Crew 18. Date July 17, 1996.
Yeah, 96.
July 17, 1996. There you go. And its first origin was John F. K. Airport, and it was going to Paris.
That's right.
All right. Good. We are back with our very first story. We're talking about the Malaysian flight MH370. And
this is delicious, this story. I really like it. Because this is like, anything's up for debate. You know what I mean? As much as it's terrible for everyone that's on board and all the families that have lost people and all the rest of it. But, this is this mystery that you're like, well, is this plane going to turn up as a missile and it's going to run into a building like happened in 9/11? Has it hit the water and amazingly debris gone? Has a UFO come over and fucking zoomed it up and it's gone?
Yeah, you get them lot.
Yeah, you know what I mean? How do you lose a plane? How has it gone?
Well, what gets me is not only is it on radar, commercial radar, it's on military radar.
Yeah.
satellites watching the planet 24/7. So, Chinese have got satellites, Russian, American, everyone's got a satellite watching everything, right? So planes just don't go missing. Number two, the engines have got GPS marking and positioning systems by Rolls-Royce. Right? That's not even the black boxes.
Yeah.
Each engine has a marker on it that gives off a signal.
Yeah.
So Rolls-Royce and the company that owns the plane, which is Boeing, isn't it? Boeing's plane.
Yeah.
They know where the engines are.
Well, that's what
So you've got the black boxes.
Yeah.
You've got all this data, and yet no one can seem to friggin' work out where the plane is.
That's what they're saying. I think it's a cover up, at least by the Malaysian authorities, saying that they sort of know what's going on, but they're just not telling anyone. There's been so many different stories. Oh, there's a bit of debris here, there's a bit of debris there. Every country is like, hey, Australia's come out, someone else has come out. Everyone's like, oh, it hasn't turned out to be anything. So, like, I mean,
they fly over that big piece of plastic that's floating around in the ocean. That's the size of Texas. Why don't they just go out there and say, could be laying in the middle of that?
Yeah, exactly.
People are clinging onto that plastic.
But like there was also another theory I heard where it's actually quite apparent that other times that planes have gone missing, it's been that the pilots committed suicide. And he's just blown the plane into the water, and that was a possible theory. They're like, well, did the pilot go? Well, that's it. We're all going down, and he so.
Well, but as far as I know, number one, the black boxes turned off before the plane. Supposedly, the plane crashed.
They physically turned it.
Which is supposed
to be physically impossible, right? Yeah. Number one, and number two is, when was the last time two black boxes both failed?
Yeah.
At the same time.
No. Yeah, there's some Bermuda Triangle shit going on with this.
Oh, so you reckon they flew into another? Well, I heard someone on the news on the internet say they flew into another dimension because when you ring the phones aren't disconnected; they just keep ringing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they reckon that people were ringing the phones of the people on the plane, and they just ring out. They don't.
Holy shit!
They don't showing up. They're engaged. So they're probably somewhere in
I'm reading sort of
Canal.
I'm reading lightweight stories from, news.com.au and 7 News, and they're saying why they will never find the black boxes is because they're at the bottom of the Indian Ocean or something, and you can't transmit from the bottom. But I don't know, from a fondness of watching, aircraft investigations, I have never, ever seen one crash. I don't know if anyone, watching this can inform us otherwise, where no data is recovered from black boxes.
No. Either it's a serious cover-up, like they've lost the plane and it was completely and utterly the airline's fault, or it was completely and utterly something to do with the government's fault, and they don't want to take, and then they're just covering up everything they can, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job of it, because not one news agency really has. Like some are coming out now going, well, the plane's completely gone, it must be terrorism, they must have dropped it, landed it somewhere, and there must be some sort of cover-up, they're going to use the plane as a weapon in the future. Like, that seems to be the overwhelming story from, global news stations all around the world now, because there's no other explanation. Like, there's no.
I reckon the plane's sitting on a US Air Force airstrip in Guam.
Yeah, probably. Wouldn't be surprised.
It also brings up we're again in the main of speculation, but it brings up this notion of potentially remote controlled aircraft.
Definitely.
This particular type of was it 777? The aircraft model was I'll double check. MH370 Boeing. This particular Boeing has it is a 777.
Is it super reliable?
Super, yeah, definitely.
It's one of the most reliable planes ever, but it's also one that hackers have shown that it can be hacked. The navigation systems can be hijacked.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people speculate that something that happened on 9/11 was that, instead of these terrorists who could not fly a Cessna at 1/10 the speed, with any level of accuracy, that the only way that these planes could have found their targets and, flown them precisely into these targets at exceeding, aircraft maximum speed would be if the planes were guided by, like
a computer.
A computer, like an instantly responding feedback navigation system.
Well,
you know, that as the
yeah.
wind comes in, the course adjusts by
Yeah.
millimeters to the left or the right. So
that would make sense as to all these control safe mechanisms have been able to switch off at one point, and then you've got no other recording. Like if a system has been overridden and hacked, like that would be the only thing that makes sense, unless it's gone to another dimension. Then I'm not too sure about interdimensional travel yet, but we might.
You're
do some
right,
research.
because think of it this way. On one, you're going to need a conspiracy which involves the pilots, the controller, somebody's gonna... Like, if there's a hijacking, usually you hear about the hijacking before it happens. Like, any type of a takeover on the basis of some terrorists,
because
you would hear about it.
Because someone's money, or someone's something done.
The pilot would... you'd hear something over the radio. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm going with string theory.
I'm going with UFOs, so we got those bases covered. I don't know where you're going.
Remote controlled aircraft.
Okay.
Well, think of it this way. If somebody remote controls, like somebody hijacked the control system of the air flight, because it's a program, they can instantaneously shut down all communications, change course, do whatever.
Yeah, but they can't shut down those black boxes because they're like analog.
They're
not tied in with the planes.
I think
electronics. They're
black
all
boxes.
analog systems.
Black boxes are a bizarre thing. They are analog systems, and they're like a beacon. My understanding is like
they don't turn off, though.
They never turn off.
Never.
My understanding of how to find them.
Scramble it.
My understanding of how to find them, right, is like it's like RFID, right? You throw out a wave, and then if there's an RFID device that catches that wave, it calls back at you. So it's one of those things, like it's a transponder. You send out a signal and it sends a signal back.
Yeah.
So the only way you could lose a black box, technically, so that nobody can find it, would be that you either destroy it, like with a bomb or something, or like stick it in a Faraday cage. A Faraday cage meaning, an electrically charged mesh. That holds out all the signals. This is where, like, drug dealers build rooms that are Faraday cages so that, even if there was a bug in there, nobody could read information from that bug. So, the way you could hide a black box is if you actually hijack the plane, land it, take out the black boxes, and either physically destroy them.
But I gotta look. Don't get me wrong, but I physically don't think that the pilot or the engineer or anyone in the cockpit can remove those black boxes in flight.
No, I would.
But you could put it this way.
I don't think they're accessible.
They're not accessible, but put it this way. A Faraday cage isn't that expensive.
Yeah, but if they're not
you could build it
accessible
at any scale. Like if this if this plane is landing at a military base, you could park this plane in a hangar.
Just while you're going down that path, what military base, where, and why would they decide to take that plane?
Well, our government's looking for wreckage out off the Southern Ocean.
Yeah.
There were, as far as I know, there was 12 Chinese citizens, and most of them have been identified as associated with their intelligence networks. If one of them was a high-value asset to the U.S.,
is that correct? I haven't heard that.
On their way back to China too.
Well,
really?
I will be
part of a high technology company called starts with S. With patents that tied into a banker.
Well, I will definitely add to the show notes that
please.
Sources for Chinese intelligence.
I think they're techs.
Yeah, intelligence and high.
So that makes a lot more sense because I mean, look, when I think of what could have happened, I don't think of a terrorist option being like as sophisticated as something like the U.S. military. If you're talking about the U.S. military having something to do with it, then of course they can just take a plane and do whatever they want. And they can cut it off and no one would fucking know.
But isn't it every time a terrorist does a job like that? The first thing is like 6 of them put their hand up and say, "Yeah, it was me. It was me.
It was me."
But where are they?
I'm fucking flying.
And also, like, you're all assuming perhaps that this thing was done for a reason, but perhaps it's a trial.
Yep.
The remote control hijacking of an airplane, maybe that is something that some rogue organization or perhaps some government
Yeah.
intends to do lots in the future, and it would have been much easier, I suppose, in that theory. They just remote controlled it and crashed it, and it looks like a crash.
Yeah.
But if this is cutting edge technology, right?
Well, and also-
if you have the capacity to do that, you would need to test it out in a real situation. You would not,
You're not putting all your eggs in one basket. Like if you're going for another like sort of 9/11 situation, and then go, hopefully it all works out now. You know what I mean? You would have to give it a shot before you did.
Yeah,
something
you'd
like
need
that.
a trial or something like that.
Yeah, but like I mean, as long as this wreckage doesn't turn up, I don't know. Is this the sort of story that's going to like disappear into the wind? Like, is this just going to build and build and build, and then suddenly it's like turns into this big? You know what I mean? Like,
it's a good question. I mean, I don't know. Look, I sincerely think that the most likely explanation as to how this thing disappears, the most, the way that the dots connect in the most simple way is like a remote controlled hijacking.
yeah,
The scary thing about that is that you cannot point a finger at anybody very easily because you need a transponder, but anyone can hack it. Like, hackers can hack into a satellite.
yeah,
Like, you could literally have one guy. This is the type of thing where one guy on his laptop, with real hacking skill,
Just do it to the sake of saying I can do it.
can hijack a plane. Like, I'm not saying that's most likely. It's not some one guy. Like, it's a pretty humongous task, but it's within the realm of possibility.
All right. I'd like to just put my hand up here. We just had a documentary here in Australia on SBS or Channel 2, I can't remember, and I was talking about Flight 800 and how the FBI...
The TWA flight,
Flight 800.
1996, yeah.
Yeah, and then they were just talking about how 5 engineers have come out and said that they caught the FBI altering evidence, taking evidence away and not bringing it back, moving evidence around in the hangar. So to show when they build the plane up, they like to build it and show how it ruptured from the inside, it ruptured from the outside. Parts that could have had could have had the phosphorus or the materials that make a bomb. Instead of being tested on site, which they could have been, they were sent to Florida and never come back. So all these engineers have come out and said, the FBI are in there hammering parts out, the other way to make it look like the blast is from inside out, not outside in.
Wow.
So this has been a huge cover-up by the FBI, and the FBI don't normally get involved in air crash investigation. They've got a whole department in the US for doing that. And the FBI are in there constantly, middle of the night type stuff, moving stuff around, taking stuff away. So there's been a huge cover-up over there, and it's just come out over here in Australia, and of course none of the news networks picked it up.
No.
But if a government can cover up anything it wants, I mean...
Well, if,
of course, yeah.
In a country like America, you would have a lot more, newshound type journalists and people trying to dig around for what happened.
Yeah.
And it'd be harder to cover an air crash or an airplane experience or whatever in America than in Malaysia. Like, in Malaysia,
I don't think they have the resources to do it.
The airline probably has information that tells us something very, very specific or detailed.
Yeah, but it sounds to me like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That the airplane went off the radar in a certain part of the ocean. Don't ask me where. Somewhere between
Well,
Vietnam and Malaysia.
It veed off a track. Like, it went straight on course, and then just literally turned around and went back, and then over the part of the ocean. And it purposely went off course.
Yeah, but see, here's what I don't understand. Why are we looking at for 3,000 kilometres off the Perth coast, heading towards Antarctica?
I know,
what are we down there for?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
No, that is.
The bloody plane probably didn't have the fuel to get down there.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the partly. Sean, can you?
Sorry, mate.
I think the setup is actually kind of shaky.
Yes.
Green screen next month.
Yeah, I would say, a lot of it has got to do with the Australian government just saying, we're involved too.
I know,
we're looking for it.
Little guys down the bottom just going, we'll give it our best shot.
It was taken by terrorist penguins flying to Antarctica.
I know.
Well,
just like what's that? Madagascar.
Yeah.
I think we covered. the 370 plane.
I don't think there's much more we can All
right.
You know.
All right. Crimea. Ukraine.
Firstly, I think if we're going to talk about this, I think you have to sort of start, given that obviously people watching this probably have a fair idea about what's going on, but if you start with the Ukraine sort of revolution a little bit first, and then you can sort of move down to Crimea, because, I mean, if you just start with Crimea, what's the talk of what's going on in the past, sort of it's all happened over the past 20 days. It was probably the fastest takeover of a spot of land that we've had in recent history.
Without blood.
Without blood, they've done it. They did it very well.
All I can say is
a good businessman.
All I can say is I gotta raise my hand up for Putin, because he's been a bit of a hero lately. He stopped America from going to Syria, and now he's had a bloodless takeover of a country that was in chaos.
Yeah.
But wait for it. I don't I'm gonna try to start this from the beginning. But I don't I think the West, the America. They may not have the political control, but at least financially, they're still getting the goodies out of the Ukraine. I mean, they have a puppet government in place.
Yep.
They've taken their gold, 30 tons. They had literally just packed up and shipped out 30 tons of gold.
Wait a minute. Here's what I don't understand, right? Here's what I don't understand. You've got this guy that's taken over control, right? I think three guys that are running the show in Ukraine, right? Yeah. One of them's an international banker, right?
Yep.
He's the one who sent the gold out, number one. He's also in the US making deals, giving pipeline off to Chevron, doing this for IMF loans. Under what authority?
No,
he was never voted in, and yet America's dealing with him like he's the president or El Presidente of the Ukraine.
And the simple facts of why it's so convenient that the Ukraine has just had a revolution, this sovereign nation that has been out of the EU, is that the fact that 25% of EU's natural gas comes from Russia and runs through the Ukraine, and 80% of it runs through the pipeline in the Ukraine. $3 billion worth a year comes through. So obviously, how convenient. Another sovereign nation falls. You know what I mean? Becomes part of something bigger.
Yeah.
So I mean, but then Russia sort of just put their foot down and they said, okay, there's not much at the moment we can do about Ukraine, but we're not letting Crimea go.
The other thing too is, I mean, you got to look at it from Russia's point of view. What better country to go in there and sort out on their border? Like they're almost ready to go into civil war over there, right?
Yeah.
Over in the Ukraine. What better country to go in there with troops that speak the same language, right, to restore law and order than America or any other part of Europe? It's Russia. It was part of Russia.
Yeah.
Right. So why not send Russia in there to sort out the problems?
Well, yeah.
You can't just stand only by on your border anyway. Not that I'm saying what Russia did's right or wrong, but at the end of the day, if they're about to break out in a civil war and you could do something about it, why not?
No, that's right. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, this region in Crimea, like it's peninsula, it's a small, tiny bit of land that's really
but it's the most industrialised part of the Ukraine.
It is. Well, it's like sort of a little bit of a nice holiday destination. It's got like a lot of
can we just give people some I don't know, like overall insight? First of all, like what is the story with Ukraine? Like why is Ukraine called? No. Why is Ukraine looking as it is? Why is it like that on the map? Well, first of all, you have the East and the West Ukraine. The East Ukraine was a part of Russia. It always has been. It's just basically Russia. I mean, that's the Crimean Peninsula, and including pretty much most of the land north of it, makes up for about 40% of the country. The West Ukraine was a part of Poland. Now, the West Ukrainians speak a language that's similar to Russian, but not exactly Russian. And they have a lot of associations with the Poles, and they are European-oriented. Yep. And the East Ukrainians are they are Russians. I mean, most of them consider themselves Russian. The reason why these two parts have combined is I mean, you've got the Second World War, and Poland's invaded and freed and taken over by Russians, and then the land is partitioned. Basically, I think it was Stalin that combines these two territories
He industrialized it.
for management.
Yeah.
So, like, he puts, this Russian region that is east of Ukraine and says, oh, you're also now Ukraine, because whatever, the guy managing Ukraine is doing a good job, and he will do a better job with this access to the sea and some more territory. And that's the only reason that half of Ukraine is Ukraine, because for administrative purposes, just Russia added it to their, USSR added it to one of their states.
Yeah.
Secondly, even after the Berlin Wall fell, Ukraine was Eastern and Russian oriented until they had, what was the Western staged, they called it the Orange Revolution. And it was run by Viktor Yushchenko and Yulia Tymoshenko. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen like a lovely blonde lady, like we'll put her on screen, with those sort of brave
Princess fucking Leia.
Princess Leia. She's very much like a cartoon. Very much like a cartoon character. And she's known to be one of the most corrupt politicians.
Yeah, right.
I'll actually say we're gonna add her picture in the stage. And you have this like U.S. staged revolution, which was going and changing Ukraine, like pumping them full of IMF loans.
$5 billion they pumped in for their democracy.
For the democracy, you had and it was engineered over 8-9 years by the State Department, by the NED, National Endowment for Democracy, by American NGOs and think tanks, and they go in there and they start taking over the natural resources. They give them fake loans, fake money that doesn't exist, total fiat. Yeah. They take out real resources, and they're going in, trying to push Ukraine to get into NATO, so they can get defensive missile shield against Russia. I just imagine.
Sounds like a Greece. Sounds like another place to dump your
imagine Russia taking over Mexico and putting in nuclear missiles. I mean, this would
You reckon that would upset America?
Yeah. It's a good question. Let me think about it. If Russians took over Mexico, it'd be like them taking over Alaska. Alaska used to belong to them.
Yeah, but wait a minute. If things are bad, let's just say civil war broke out right across the border from San Diego.
Yeah.
In what do they call it? What's that part of in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Do you think the Americans sitting there to sort it all out, the Russians would kick up a shit?
No.
I don't think so.
Oh, the Russians to go.
I don't even know what the hell that place is.
And it is remarkable that America tries to push their influence so far. This is practically Russia. They're trying to control.
Well, you saw what happened in Georgia.
What goes on, and have you heard the tap telephone call by?
Yes.
Obama.
No, that European. Sorry, no, she's not. She's part of
part of the U.S. State Department.
Yeah,
Susan Rice.
And here she is trying to figure out or talk to a congressman.
She's talking. No. She's talking to the U.S. ambassador in Ukraine, saying this is who we want for the government.
So we want in.
We want Klitschko on the outside.
Yeah,
we want this guy on the inside.
Yeah.
We want the neo-Nazis.
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Where do you really think that tap come from? You reckon the Russian KGB were tapping and
I think
putting a bit of information out there just to let the rest of us know what a bunch of hypocrites the USA are?
I think good work on them. It doesn't have to be the Russians. Tapping a phone isn't rocket science or rocket surgery. I think there are a lot of independently minded and pro-Russian Ukrainians that could have done that same thing.
Yep.
So, but I think that is eye-opening. And then.
But it shows us the way that we know behind the scenes it is. We if anyone who does look at world events in the way that we look at them,
most people,
of course that's the way it is. You've got the America going. This is the way it's going to be. You know what I mean?
But most people don't believe it's that up front.
No, they don't.
Yeah, but you've got this woman straight up front going, this is who we want. We don't want him in. We want him on the side. We want him in power. He's easy to control. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, it's bullshit.
Absolutely.
But it's right there in your face. It's all there.
You know, like it.
But the biggest thing you hear on American media is how she cursed on that phone call.
Oh yeah, she said fuck the EU, and like ooh, she said fuck the EU.
Yeah.
Like, but wait a second. She's installing one
Yeah,
by one the government of a foreign state.
No, she said the F word. That's bad enough.
She said the F word, and like
Christian jerk groups are going to turn off.
yeah,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
you should not. Don't listen to the phone call. It's all about the swearing. Like the other interesting thing, I think you mentioned it in our preview, is that Crimea, which is, it's a part of this whole eastern Ukraine that speaks mostly Russian, but it's a peninsula. This is like Sebastopol. This is where Russians got all their fleet. In the Black Sea.
No, they do. I think they have a small fleet, and they have a 70% of there's the Black Sea port, which is a lot of where, from part of Europe where a lot of energy comes through, and also, they hold like 70% of their planes.
And they've got legal blinding agreements with Ukraine to keep troops in Ukraine.
Yeah.
To keep the ports there. So, like, when they say, the Russian invasion of a sovereign country. Wait, they have agreements to keep, 20,000 troops in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that agreement isn't, a rational or fair one. But we don't say, American invasion of Australia, they have a base in Darwin, they're invading us, we are under attack from Americans, they're invading us. Like, what the fuck? They have a base there. We are not being invaded by Americans, and they're not being invaded by Russians. It was like, the Russian soldiers were the ones that were already stationed in Ukraine. Yeah. And they literally were there under orders of just keep the peace, keep the peace. So, it's a bizarre world we live in, It
comes down to, once again, follow the money. It comes down to money, and it comes down to military, positioning and military power. And I think with the Crimea situation, Russia is still too weak to really, stick their nose too deeply into things that the West are trying to control. You know what I mean? Things that America's trying to control.
With all due respect, I disagree on the whole 2 week thing.
Well, they don't want to do it because they had the chance with Syria. They had the chance with. They had the chance. Well, they don't want to go to war yet.
That's it.
That's why I have respect for them. Because America is poking him and prodding him, and they're blowing up bases in Iran, and they're doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something else? This Yushchenko character that shipped out that gold and gave the pipelines to Chevron. I think it's Chevron. Said, no, if Chevron can have the pipelines for this IMF loan. He's the one that's already had 3 call-ups of the National Guard in Ukraine to stand up, come to the base, get armed up, ready to fight the Russians, right? Yeah. Wow. And each time they get 2 old men roll up and go, what are we doing? Is there a free meal? 3 times! Now he can't even ask the Ukrainian reserve to come up because they go, why? We got AK-47s from 1940, and the Russians are really...
Why would we fight the Russians?
Yeah.
They don't...
There's no reason for it.
Sorry, I just wanted to say something really, the earlier point. I don't think Russia is feeling too weak or too weak. I think Russia is the only sane party here.
You're right.
It scares me to bits, right? The way that Americans act. It's like Russia has enough nukes to end planet Earth forever. You are poking and prodding a nuclear superpower.
Well, no, Russia has the most powerful nuke on the planet. Without a doubt. Just please YouTube, if anyone wants to find out, YouTube the most powerful nukes ever made, and Russia's is 15 times more powerful than anything. And I'm not saying that, a nuke is a nuke, full stop, a nuke is a nuke, but this nuke that Russia let off once is 15 more times powerful than anything that America or the UK or anyone's been ever able to manufacture.
Yeah, but can I tell you something funny? A congressman in America turned around and said, right, Russia is a banana republic, right? It's a banana republic. But someone said, it's a banana republic with nukes.
with a lot of it. No, but you're right. Like, I mean, when you go, oh, Russia's too weak, like, you know, I mean, I would hope to think that, like, you know, when you're talking about these superpowers, that, you know, nuclear war is not really on the cards of a war. You know what I mean? If we're going into war, like, when I say Russia is weak, I'm only talking about them being weak in the terms of, like, they probably still don't have the military and they don't have the allies, and if it becomes another world war, you know, if we do go into it, I hope that nukes aren't on the table for anyone, unless you know what I mean, like, because World War II was a different scenario. World War II was like, you know, we just discovered a nuke, and America obviously really wanted to use them. They just wanted to see what would happen. You know what I mean? Now it's sort of like
Japan had already given up when they used one.
Yeah, that's right.
They're the only nation that. So too, Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
All right, and let's move on.
Okay, next story. Local. Melbourne. Over here. We had a protest, and we had a protest law.
Firstly, the protest. The protest was an overwhelming sense, really generated by intense scrutiny of the government through social media, and it was related to a no confidence sort of vote through, you know, many different generations of an ultra conservative Australian government making laws that we don't agree with.
The freedom of speech law.
Oh, it's an everything law. I think it's got to do with outrageous like environmental concerns that we have through them dumping stuff into Barrier Reef, and through you know, oh look, you name it. Like, I mean,
what sort of numbers do we have there, Sean?
It was 105 to 10,000 was the numbers that March and March gave.
Incredible.
But that was through no. It was about 60,000 in Melbourne, and then all the rest throughout Australia. Well, it's incredible for Australia. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's been our first major large scale protest in a long time. You know, there was no protest for Kevin Rudd. I don't think that anyone protests like or the Labor. Everyone was just like, oh, it's a shit government, yada yada. But no one actually got out in the street and said the Labor government, the Socialist government was bad.
The failure of the Labor government was due to stupidity, incompetence, and trying to please everybody. You know, like, oh, we are going to have good social programs, and the corporations are going to like us too. Like, no, they want more for them, less for us. And I mean, you know, quite frankly, you know, I can live with when politicians, if you have a stance, if you're against whatever, Medicare, Centrelink, if you're against welfare, and you want, you know, people to stand on their own 2 feet and all that, and okay, if that is your moral stance, I'll live with it. But this government is the government of corporate welfare. Definitely. They will hand out tens of billions to corporations that already have hundreds of billions and don't need any extra money. They're giving massive tax breaks to the whole mining industry, to the oil and gas exploration, to the insurance companies. They are literally
taking it away from renewable energy sources, taking it away from
They don't want competition.
And
no. Trickle down economics is their main their main guys in this whole political scheme at the moment. Like,
if you want to say, if your whole position is we want to have a small government, right, that doesn't bog down the country with bureaucracy, that runs on next to nothing, that just regulates corporations, like, I mean, I don't agree with that, I don't like that, but that's a valid stance. I can understand that somebody actually believes it. But if you are taking away from the poor to give to the rich, you are a fucking dick. This government is not even. I mean, they haven't. You can't even criticize something that's such a disgrace. I mean, it is like going out and saying, "Oh, the North Korean government, you know, they really don't engage in human rights so much, and that's a problem. Like, no! Like, no shit! The present Australian government
It's really good to get shit done, you know what I mean? If they want to do something, there's no red tape, they just get it done, you know what I mean? And if they don't like it, they kill people. So it's sort of the same way about saying, you know, oh, look, you know, it's a good way of, you know, cutting red tape in Australia. Australia is open for business, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Tony Abbott's slogan, Australia's now open for business, you know?
He goes to G8 summits now, and he just goes, instead of introducing us as, hi, I'm Tony Abbott, Prime Minister or Dictator of Australia, he just walks up to him and goes, open for business, open for business, open for business.
What the fuck he did at the last G8? Do you know, because Australia was hosting the last G8, do you know what he did? He didn't turn up. Putin had to actually say, well, the host hasn't turned up. He goes, I haven't got... Hey, you should see the video, please. I haven't got any of the footnotes. Putin's sitting there for like 20 minutes. And Abbott and the Canadian Prime Minister, they didn't turn up.
Is that because the Americans told him not to?
No, I wouldn't have.
Probably.
Like,
Tony Abbott and his government are the lapdogs of the US.
Oh, yeah. You should see Putin. He's sitting there for like 20 minutes and he's going, look, I'm going to start it because he's the next in line. And he goes, I'm going to start it. He goes, I don't know what's happening here because I'm not the one that he goes. And then Abbott's just walked in, like, after Putin's like started it. And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Got his papers, looked all professional. And we're like, this is Australian. Fucking Australian, like, you idiot. Like,
you know, Chris and I had this idea of dressing ourselves in, I mean, this is like, it would take some effort, but this would be the most brilliant thing. You know, like NASCAR or Formula 1 jumpsuits with 10,000 sponsors?
Yeah.
And, Abbott is a guy that literally is...
He can be bought and sold.
He should be wearing that jumpsuit. And this is like...
just all the mining companies down.
Yeah, right on the heart is like, you know, the U.S. State Department. You know, like you can have an earpiece and you've got the U.S. State Department saying, yep, it's Putin. Be at least 20 minutes late.
Yeah.
And you've got freaking Rio Tinto and BHP the other year, like... Yeah, profits are down. We want another 10 billion. Yeah. I don't care where you're gonna get it. Look, I mean, Centrelink cost the country 30 billion. Just take them from them.
Want another coal port?
Once again, like, I mean, you know, there were no protests on the street of any liberal, you know, people voting no confidence in the most dysfunctional, you know, Labor government, if not nearly even government in Australia. Like, I'm not saying this liberal current Conservative government isn't functional. They're completely functional in what they're doing. Yeah. They're just absolute dickheads, you know, absolute assholes. So there was no liberal, advocates on the streets protesting in numbers of tens of thousands around Australia, saying this government's dysfunctional during the last 4 years of the Labor government. No. They were just like, oh yeah, they'll be out next, and that's that. But no. There's actually people on the street now going, you know, these guys have got to go. They're destroying, you know, what it means to be Australian, all the values which we hold. You know, we're not a American state who, you know, allows people to go hungry, who allows, you know, the rich to get extremely rich. You know what I mean? We want to be able to look after other people. You know what I mean?
But what you've got here, though, you've got this Abbott government has set up this productivity commission, right? And a lot of people don't understand what this is. But what it is how to get the workers' conditions down, how to drive down wages by bringing in imported labour, which I don't have a problem bringing in labour from overseas. Yeah. But to bring it in to drive down wages and to drive down conditions, right? And say we have to be competitive, we've got to compete against China, and dropping all the things we've ever fought for our quality. I mean, isn't the government there for us to keep our quality of living and probably try to make it better than what it is? But what they're doing is they're running it into the ground. They don't give a shit about the local Australian. And I don't know how long. I don't know what it's going to take for the people to wake up and get out there on the street and just kick this turd out.
And there's another completely and utterly amazing candidate just standing behind him that everyone knows should be in power. Malcolm Turnbull. He should be the leader of the Liberal government. You know what I mean? He's actually a fairly, you know, reasonable person when it comes to policies of the Liberal Party. Like,
I was going to tattoo this as the Liberal
Party. No. I'm just saying. Look, you know, you're speaking to the wrong person when you're talking about, you know, parties and that sort of thing. But
No, you're
Sean,
right.
you can understand is that one person doesn't make any difference in a poll.
Like Sean,
I know,
you
yeah.
are. No, you have a point. I mean,
I
like
have a
Malcolm
point,
Turnbull is a guy that successfully managed a big company, and he's reasonably competent. And like, I don't agree with his policies or Abbott's policies, but you know, like, as I said, even with Ron Paul, I'm against this mini government, and the freaking business world is somehow going to regulate itself, and we're all going to be fine. Like, I don't believe in that, but.
That's a liberal utopia, that.
People that actually try to practice what they preach, I tolerate it. I respect it. You know, if this guy had zero corporate welfare and was trying to cut social welfare, I'd be like, well, you know, you have some idea of yours.
Yeah.
That how society should be run, and you're following it. It's not an idea I agree with, but the idea has some legitimacy. Like, if Ron Paul came in, he started doing things. But no, that's absolute hypocrisy. Like, we are going to tax every single citizen of this country and take those taxes and just hand them over to the richest of the rich, like shareholders of...
This is fascism.
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck what you... which way you paint it.
No,
Because that's exactly what it is.
Like,
No, it is definitely, and like I mean, I think the last some of the last stuff I was reading was like he was saying that he was never going to increase the GST, which is a tax on the poor to basically give to the rich. But now there's talk of like, oh, we might have to increase the GST
You can
because
pay
we're not
back that big loan that we just took out.
Yeah, exactly.
and I mean, like, here's the question. I just want to say something before we close with this story. Just to every single Australian out there listening. This, per capita, is the richest country in the world.
We're the 10th biggest economy in the world. And we've got like 20 million people.
And if you think of Australia in terms of the amount of food it can produce, the amount of energy it produces, the general notion of resources, the land per capita, arable land per capita, usable water per capita, like in all of those stats, we could house twice as many people, and every single Australian could have a living standard that is
more than that of any Scandinavian country you could
that is like,
the
average Australian salary is now like $57,000 a year. That is about 4 times
more than that, man. It's fucking like 80. It's 80 something. The average Australian salary is like 80,000, and that's got nothing to do with the average Australian. It's only got to do with how rich people are.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. If you look,
I think it was the median was like 57.
Why don't we bring the Ferrari?
I mean, I'm just reasonably.
Ferrari.
1 second. Here's the point before we move on to the next story. You live in the richest country in the world, and when some government says we need to save and like not build you new roads or open new schools or do social, I mean, they're absolutely and totally full of shit. They are selling this land off to whoever wants to buy it. They're selling farms to China, to India, to whoever wants to own farmland in Australia. They're encouraging Chinese to buy houses here. Not that there's a problem. I mean, it's free money for this country. Like, we have infinite amount of land to build houses on, and only because the government is like dripping it out slowly, the value is artificially increased. And the final thing I want to say, like the biggest con that Labour and Liberal governments have perpetuated on us is the whole housing investment thing. It is, the average Australian is spending half of what they earn paying off a mortgage in a country that has more abundant land than anywhere in the world. Like, we should have free land to live on. But what they do is they have this thing, you should like buy 7 investment properties, borrow, $10 million, and then pay up all this money in interest. And then, supposedly, we're going to casino gamble and all these properties are going to gain in value.
I've never thought of it that way. Hey, that's such a fucking unique way to think of it. It's sort of like, we got
what I'm doing. What are you doing?
So much fucking land. I never thought of it like that. We got so much land, and yet you have to go and buy a unit for like $500,000 that's got no land.
Think about how the person is swindled, right? Like, wait a second. I'm paying most of my money on this mortgage, but my house is worth $2 million. But wait, you're gonna pay this off in 30 years. Boom.
Yes.
And second, you're living in it. That $2 million exists only in your imagination because you'll be on the street if you try to cash it out.
Yeah.
And your loan is nearly as big as the $2 million, so you can't cash it out. It's like
live in the casino.
you are. If you think your house is valuable and you're good because your house is valuable, you're just living in it. If it was worth $10, it would be the same house. You'd have the same lifestyle. But somehow, because someone tells you it's worth $2 million, you're willing to give away
You can borrow against
2/3 of everything you earn.
You can borrow against it.
Yeah, you can borrow against
that. Put yourself in more debt.
That is the biggest insanity. Like, if we had just one law that says one Australian, one property, we would fix all this. Because, wait a second, all these people that are, like, practically running feudalism. I got, like, 20 houses and I'm renting them all out.
You got it wrong. There's one thing in this country we could do tomorrow and change everything. Get rid of the tax incentive, the capital gains tax incentive, for people who own investment properties. Because as soon as you got rid of that, the market would level out straight away. And you wouldn't have all these houses. Because the only reason why these people are buying these investment properties, half of them aren't even got renters in them. Now, we know this because there's a guy over here in a community radio station called Renegade Economics. And he has gone to Melbourne Water and he said, how many properties in Melbourne don't pay a water bill more than $100? And they've told him. It's 70,000 properties in Melbourne that don't have people living in them. They've been purely investment properties.
Oh my God.
They don't want the... And then here you got the building industry saying, we need 70,000 more houses to build for people who are waiting for houses, people who need houses. So open up the land and zone it. So if you drop capital gains tomorrow, I can guarantee you the market would take a... Well, I reckon on a $400,000, I reckon probably take a $45,000 backward slide and be in where it should be, really.
And if the housing market crashes, it's better for everybody. People that can't afford houses will be able to.
Be able to buy
and
houses.
if you own your house, you still own it. You're still paying exactly the same, and it's still exactly the same house. Like, how much is this delusion worth to you that my house is worth so much? But
you never sell it, or like you very rarely sell it. Like, you know what I mean?
Only to buy a new one.
Yeah.
And so, if your house is worth $2 million, but every house is worth $2 million. Okay, you'd sell it for $2 million, buy the other one. Now you're living in the other one, right? If your house is worth $100,000, you sell it for $100,000 and buy another one for $100,000.
What about if I sold it, took my money, moved to the desert, dug a hole, put a corrugated sheet over the top, and lived in that?
Well, then you'd be a hobo. But a hobo with a lot of money, baby. $100,000. The point is
to live in there and prostitutes.
Guys, we all
prostitutes
just look for the sheet of corrugated iron.
with prostitutes going in this.
I don't know. I'm trying to make my point, and you're all like prostitutes in this. Fuck.
Yeah.
The point is, before we move on to the Snowden TED Talk, is this: in Australia, if we get lower property prices, we all benefit. We are all winners. That would be lovely. Alright, next. Alright, Eddie Snowden, the whistleblower extraordinaire of the NSA.
Possibly conspiracy theories are coming out about him now, and like, who is he? And like, you know, is he affiliated with the American government now? Is he like, you know, I don't know.
Sure, the Russians would know. They wouldn't have let him in.
Surely they would have known.
Yeah,
No, he seems legit, yeah.
I've actually learned a lot about Edward Snowden in his TED Talk, because like you kind of understand where he comes from. He's very much... The guy has an issue with these unjust invasions of privacy that go on and on and on and on, with people being actively spied on that don't deserve to be spied on, with people having databases of everything they've ever done compiled. So one day, Sean, if somebody from the government doesn't like you, they can go in your file and, you know, every website you've ever visited, every book you've ever bought, every whatever woman you've ever wronged, every porn site, like every single thing you've ever done, if somebody had that, like, and if they were to pick out 10 pieces, they could make you look like, they could make anybody.
Yep.
They could make me, you, Chris, whatever, anyone look like a terrible human being.
Yeah, but the other thing too is, How easy is it to manipulate any of that stuff? How is it for me to go back into your website back into your browsing 5 years ago? Yeah, just drop a bit of kiddie porn in there. Just do this. And how are you gonna fight that in court?
No.
It's ones and zeros. Like, how do you say? I never did that. Well, we got ones and zeros. Say here that it's not real. What is at that virtual level? So I mean, the
like
guy,
that Tom Cruise pre-crime thing.
Yeah, the guy has a point. He's against that.
Definitely.
But to give you a context, right, of what he's not against, he's like, we should have these securities, and they're making all these backdoors into these companies, and the companies are losing their intellectual property. I'm like, well, Chris and I had podcasts about this. I think intellectual property is one of the main things holding human progress. If it wasn't for intellectual property, right now cars would be going 1,000 k's in a tank.
They'll be flying? Possibly?
You'd probably have some type of cold fusion happening.
Definitely, it's a suppression of technology for sure. No problem.
But secondly, he says, there's legitimate secrets, and the government have a right to do this and have a right to do that. And he's like, most people in the NSA are good patriotic people, and I stand for the mission. So, to give you some idea of who Edward Snowden is like, I know they say mention Nazis lose the argument, but it's kind of like somebody from the Nazi party says, I love the Fuhrer, we are doing awesome work, but these concentration camps are wrong, and I will not stand for this.
Fair enough.
And I just want to, to the activist-minded people out there that are worshipping this guy, I mean, I got a lot of love, respect for Snowden and what he did. He probably got inside help, maybe from a competing intelligence agency. Maybe CIA wanted to get at the NSA and have, because if NSA gets less funding, CIA gets more funding. The intelligence complex, they only get more every single year. And if somebody...
The CIA get their own funding from themselves.
Yeah, they do a lot of projects and all that. But you see what I mean? If that pie is going out to intelligence agencies.
Yep.
All the other ones, if they make NSA look bad, NSA gets less of the pie.
Yeah.
They get more, it's happy. So
just an article I read today that they were saying that Congress are now talking about stopping the bulk collection of information. They're going to vote on it soon. Just stopping the bulk collection. So I mean, it's worked. If that's been the case, then
it's a wonderfully good thing. I just want to give that caveat to people, Snowden is a good guy for someone who is inherently a part of the establishment. He's against one aspect of the many bad things that are going on. He's not necessarily against the general terrible state of affairs when it comes to intelligence agencies, corporations, and so on. And secondly, this information is presently under the control of eBay owner Pierre Omidyar. Snowden gave it to The Guardian, specifically gave it to Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald is somehow now in a partnership with, I think the guy's name is Michael Scahill, or is it the guy that did the documentary called Dirty Wars, and they're starting a new media venture called First Look Media, and they're funded by the eBay and PayPal owner. Yep. And so, eBay and PayPal are like State Department, man. They are sort of linked in with the U.S. agencies. So basically, the same guys that control the NSA now control the Snowden data. And it had a real positive effect on the world. It created the conversation, but we only saw 5% of it, and we're not going to see anything else that's really damaging from there because the establishment now controls it again.
So, but hold on. So, if Snowden took it all out of the system, he went on the lam, and then he went to Russia. So he sold it back to America? Is that what you're saying?
No, he gave it. Instead of him saying, "I'm going to release everything free on the internet," he's like, "I'm going to give it to journalists, and they'll choose what to give and when, and check out the information." And
but why
so that was his logic. Why did he do that?
Exactly.
But he
Exactly.
Had that information. Why don't you just give it to Russia? Give it to RT.
I don't know.
RT would have a field day.
Give it to everybody.
That is the truth.
Fair enough.
Like 95% of the Snowden files are now back under control of
And he's
people
like
around
a
the US.
fucking, and he's like a billionaire, or is he like a multi-millionaire now, like Snowden?
No, Snowden just the multi-millionaire is the journalist that the Snowden gave the stuff to, Glenn Greenwald.
That's crazy.
That is the reality. That is the reality, and that's what the Snowden talk doesn't tell you, and that's what the TED skips to tell you. So, when you're talking about Snowden, I mean, you should know these facts.
Yep.
So, you know, who owns this information now, what his perspective is, and what happened to the information. So now we're very unlikely to see the most incriminating bits of what Snowden took from the NSA. And that's a sad state of
Russia
affairs.
knows, do they?
I hope so. I don't know.
They would fucking know.
I don't know. Like, I imagine...
There's no way that he's living in Russia now and they don't have, like, at least, like, 90% of that information.
They would...
You wouldn't let him into the country.
They would have a portion. I mean, I would speculate that they would have a portion.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other thing, just as we kick on, talking about the NSA, the CIA, and ASIO here in Australia, our CIA.
We can just presume they're doing exactly the same shit.
No, but I just wanted to point out a comment that I read the other week about how ASIO, as well as the CIA, are collecting data on companies and selling it to other companies. So they're spying on commercial companies.
It's practically racketeering.
And handing it over to other companies that can afford to buy it. So they're spies for hire. So I've been seeing.
Well, why not? You know, if you give people that type of power to, I mean, you know, if you could spy on what everyone anywhere does 24/7, you can blackmail the most powerful people in the world. Mm-hmm. You can have access to all these corporate secrets.
Well, they can eavesdrop. See, in the US, I don't know about here in Australia, but in the US, they can eavesdrop on anyone without a court order to say why they're even eavesdropping.
In these other two cases of Russell Tice and I forgot the other NSA whistleblower's name, but I think it was Russ Tice that said this, and this was very interesting. He worked for the NSA, and his job was to review backgrounds for Supreme Court judges. So all the candidates for a Supreme Court judge spot, he would like literally go through their life history, you know, from who they call, their data, their internet history, and he's like, and he would do a report on all of them. And he's like, remarkable consistency. The dodgiest, shadiest, most corrupt of the candidates make it to the Supreme Court.
Yep.
Amazing.
And the reasoning behind it is obvious. Yeah. If you have a dodgy, shady guy with a lot of skeletons in his closet, the guys at the intelligence agencies have them fully under control, fully blackmailed. So you've got... There's two types of currencies of power. There's effectively... If you look at America as the world center of, you know, geopolitical power, there are two nexuses of what power is, and one is information, the other is money.
Yeah.
And manipulation.
You have the U.S. intelligence agencies, so we're talking NSA, CIA, naval intelligence, and so on. They got the dirt on everybody.
Yep.
And that is serious power. And they know what's happening ahead of anyone else. And they're plugged into Google and Facebook and whatnot. And then you have the guys that own the corporations and own the hedge funds, and obviously the central banks. They have the financial screws on nation states and the financial screws on companies and the financial screws on the market.
What about these big...
And these are the two nexuses of power.
What about all these, you know, these big banks, investment houses in New York Stock Exchange, gathering information on certain companies, where the new technology is coming through, where the technology is being held back, where it's going to be released. But you know what? That just shows you that anyone who's got money in a big company can buy information. What about if you're a little company and you can't buy that information? Someone's spying on you. You know, you're never going to get ahead. You can never get ahead because you're constantly being... your ideas and stuff have been taken.
There's no chance. Yeah.
Intellectual property does vary. By the way, guys, like pizza has arrived. So we're going to wrap up the last two stories in under 5 minutes. Israel.
Oh, that's interesting.
There is their diplomats are striking.
Yeah.
So we've been told.
So we're being told. Apparently, poor pay I think
which really blows me away. Like, I mean, I will please look up the link, but like, yeah, it blows me away that that they've been having a pay dispute just for a bit. Just click the link; it'll just be down. It'll just be there somewhere. No, that's visibility, Clay. It'll be up there. There you go. No, this is Washington Post. Jerusalem Post.
Jerusalem Post. Services needed for everybody from new immigrants to employers being foreign workers will be brought to a halt. Foreign Ministry Workers Committee declared a full-fledged strike on Sunday, closing the ministry and all countries' embassies and consulates around the world for the very first time. And it's the culmination of a 2-year dispute. Wow.
Yep. So obviously you can see the conspiracy flags waving pretty high with this one. It's sort of like, well, you know, seems pretty outrageous that Israel can't pay their consulate staff enough money. You know what I mean? Obviously Israel has enough money to pay them, and why would they be wanting to pay, you know, people in other countries who represent Israel not enough money? So I mean,
it's the last set of people you
don't want people in other countries, you know, bad mouthing Israel. You know what I mean? Obviously they got enough money to pay them. So I mean, you got to start asking questions. Well, why is this happening?
And you've got to realize that you know, 15% of the foreign service would probably be Mossad.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
And that would
you gotta pay Mossad.
They're on strike.
Rothschild's army.
Yeah.
It's we'll just leave that one at that. But there's something highly suspicious.
So keep an eye on that. We'll see what happens. Just keep an eye on Israel.
Keep an eye on Israel, very much so. And the last story of the day. We've had a few more links. You know, maybe we'll cover them next time. Maybe there'll be other more pressing stories.
Yeah.
But 528 Muslim Brotherhood members sentenced to death by Egypt's government, by Egypt's military junta that have run the country for the past 50 years. First of all,
Egypt's a funny case when it comes to the military, because a lot of the generals and stuff, as you get up to those higher ranking officers, have their fingers in all the businesses in Egypt.
Definitely.
Like, you know, whether it be oil, gas, this, that, the other. They're practically not, they're not just generals in the army, they're actually running
they're
corporations. And if you come in there as a foreign national running, saying you want to, let's say you're Coca-Cola, right? Let's say, and you want to set up business there, you can't just go, oh yeah, I'll build a shop, go set up business.
No,
you've got to have one of those boys as your partner, as your inside man.
Well,
so what I'm getting to is that this military isn't just funded by, let's say, the government or whatever it may be.
It's actually nearly a separate body.
They're self-funded. They're self-funded.
Yeah. It's nearly even a separate body. Like, the government and the military have talks as to, you know, try and work out diplomatic solutions. That's what I was doing some research when they were having those revolutions. I was like, well, hold on, like, they're actually separate bodies. Like, and then. Yeah, the military decided that, you know, the government could only ask the military. The government was in no way in control.
Yeah, that's right. It's not
in
like
control of the military. No. They can only.
The military is in control of the government.
Yeah. But
just visualize this.
That's what it
right?
is.
In the West, even in Australia, someone kills somebody. There's like a 2-year court case that you hear all about, and they reinvestigate the evidence, call in 30, 40 experts. We don't have the death penalty, but if whatever, they get given life, they've got 5 appeals, and this thing goes on for 7, 8 years. The same thing in the United States. It probably, you know, the average guy spends 10 years on death row, but for 528 people to be sentenced to death, it basically tells you one thing alone: there ain't no justice system.
No.
There is no innocent until proven guilty or investigation into the guilt of these people. I'm sure some of them
pretty
are
blanket statement, you know what I mean? Especially all to come out in one day. It doesn't come out in dribs and drabs, like 2 people that day, 5 people that day. It's sort of like, all you motherfuckers are going to die. And that's that. You know what I mean? Like,
it is.
It's outrageous.
Yeah, but you've also got to ask, who is the Muslim Brotherhood?
Yeah.
Who are they?
Oh no!
Now,
well, the name sort of states who they are.
No. But you got to find out. You got to find out.
They're run by the US.
Nah.
Are they?
CIA.
Are they?
Yeah. They're corporate. They're CIA. I think I'd take a good guess, and I'd say mid-50s, late 50s, they were set up by the CIA to be a political influence in Egypt.
Absolutely. Most radical Muslim jihadi groups. I mean, starting with bin Laden in Afghanistan and the whole Mujahideen there that they set up to fight the Russians. They were setting up the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt as a counterbalance to the military, which were the allies of the U.S.
But what they're also doing, they've also been funding the Muslim Brotherhood to be that Godfather type thing in the neighbourhood.
Yeah.
Bread for the poor, water for the this, money for that. Setting up schools, doing all that stuff to get the people behind them to build their organisation.
And
so
Chris,
one day,
why? And you asked me
because one day when they go for election, they got the people behind them. People don't forget.
And why? Okay, you have military in power in Egypt. You want to control the group in power, and you want to control their alternative. Why? First of all, if you want to push around the group in power, if there's someone strong enough to push them out, and you control them, you have leverage to push Egypt around. Second, if there's a revolution, you're still running the show. So, if you're America, you want to set up whoever's in charge in some country that you want to control, and then you want to set up their opposition.
Of course you do.
So, should they go down to some popular revolt or a revolution, U.S. try to put Muslim Brotherhood in government when Mubarak went down. And they try to put Muslim government along with this guy called Mohammed al-Baradei, which was, this guy's a total Western puppet, and that didn't quite work.
Well, they worked out who he was.
And now they're happy dealing with the army.
Yeah, but you've seen America do that in Africa. They put some guy in, right? Hullabba jabba, right? He gets in power. He gives them a bit of grief. Won't let him do this. Won't let him do that. Gets a bit greedy. We want this. We want that. Oh, I might build a hospital for, I don't know, my family or some bullshit. Yeah. So they get the general in. Then they go, how would you like to be king for a day? And they fund him up. He overthrows the government. And they go, oh, he's got a bit too much power. Let's get his second in charge. Throw him out. Yeah, and all this, and it just continually, one after the next.
But you think that this is happening in Australia, this is happening in America, it's happening everywhere. Look, in Australia, why is it good? Why is it good for corporations and power cabals and, the US to have a labor liberal that are roughly evenly matched? Is because they can go to Abbott now and say, oh, your opposition are more popular than you, and what we're going to do is we are going to cut you out of this economic deal, which is going to drive your stock market down 20 points, and your business government will knock you out. And they'll take over. But if Abbott somehow, visualized this, if he was exceedingly popular, you can't blackmail someone, you can't push around someone like that. Chavez, who had 90% of the country behind him, could not be pushed around. But if you are stuck in this parliamentary democracy where they're neck and neck, you just need to knock down one government, just a little bit down, and their opposition runs them over in the next election. And we have elections every 3 years.
But wait a minute. If you had a true democracy, you wouldn't have two parties. You'd have 15.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is not a true democracy. So anyone who thinks we've got a democracy in this country, and then they can say, oh, but we got the Greens and we had the Democrats. Bullshit. It's a two-party system. Yeah, same in the US. It works really well over there for their hypocrisy, democracy. Same as it does over here. Yeah. Same thing.
It's the truest statement said all night.
Same colour.
Guys, definitely. I think we're gonna shut it down here and have some pizza and everybody. Look, first of all, thank you both. This was awesome. Yeah, I enjoy this. This is like a fun thing to do, and I suppose news for the people, and I'm sure people out there are going to be fans, and we'll be back in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks, and hopefully the quality will even keep getting higher.
Well, we could get a bit of a funding.
As long as some crazy shit keeps happening.
Or you could fund us some money so we can get a green screen.
I know.
Yeah. Well, hasta la vista.
Thanks,
take care.
Yes, This song is called Be the Change, inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loo. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change
that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace,
aspire to be.
Someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King.
Aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment indeed.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score to maintain an archaic platform of power and greed. People fight for land out of survival and need. So I'm killing my television and I'm planting a seed to fill my head with knowledge that I'm seeing recede. Due to the media propaganda killing my creed. Oh, what don't kill me make me stronger, feeling straight when I bleed. Fight for interest before it's attached to feet. They try to sell you anything in this world, nothing for free. Land, air, fire, and water, they keep up in the ante while the anti-proletariat hold the powers that be. But we keep fighting, surviving and thriving, recycling and rhyming. We constantly inclining, we see through the lying and prying. They tactically keep trying to keep you from asking the why.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace,
aspire to be.
Someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King.
Aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment indeed.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
We find solutions, different possibilities, creating organizations like Aspire to Be, inspiring young minds to see, building life skills, nurturing creativity, fulfilling the youth's basic needs, listening actively, teaching the tools to succeed, positive role models, we plant the seed, the roots drink the water which feed the trees, someone help me.